Um, okay. I forget, do we go around the room and introduce ourselves first and then?
Well, I think this thing's so fancy. You can do something and automatically sets itself.
Oh.
Remember, it was, how do you do that?
How it like focuses?
Yeah,
Or
there was a, you just like had to hit a button. It did it for us.
just turn?
It's not.
It's a little slanted.
Okay, so.
Can you guys see, or do you want to zoom in? Do you want to zoom in a little?
Well,
Just have to turn the machine itself.
that what it is? Yeah.
There you go.
There, that's good.
I thought it had, this one was the one that would do all the tricks for us.
Call to order. And again, I forget, do we, first of all, we do a roll call, so we should talk about who's here. The shades are going down. I'm Mary Lou. I am on the Historic District Board.
I'm Drew Cook. I'm with PMM, the designer on the project we presented today.
Grace Plinko, member of the Historic Board.
Lauren Manning, City of Tucson Planning and Development Services.
Everyone, Dan Bursick, City of Tucson Planning and Development Services.
Public poster, posting recommend comment.
Daniel Hill, resident of Fort Lauderdale.
I'm Blaine Hill, associate member.
Tom Holmes just visiting.
Okay. So, our first,
And then online, maybe
oh
you
yeah,
have the folks online introduce yourselves as well. David,
Hi, Dave Peets, member of the advisory board.
Margot Sackheim, member of the advisory board.
Neil. He's muted. Neil, you're muted.
Oh. Hi, Neil Konigsberg. Interested resident. Pardon? Pardon?
are you affiliated with the neighborhood or any other?
Yes, yes.
Resident?
No, I'm just a resident of the city of Tucson.
Great, thank you for joining.
Okay.
Sure.
And then Margaret.
And yeah, Wyatt, you're muted as well.
Sorry. Wyatt Berger, Planning and Development.
Very good. Our first order of business for this board is approval of the minutes from July 22nd. We've had opportunity to review them. Comments or concerns?
I move to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll
I
second.
Thank you. Okay. So Drew, that brings you up on this review.
Warren, how do I?
Wyatt, can you make Drew a co-host so we can share a screen?
Yeah, let me get to it real quick.
I'm gonna have to.
Or we can bring it up for you.
He should be a co-host now.
Do you want us to bring them up? The plans?
No, I have a presentation.
Okay.
So. I don't know how it is. Take a.
If you just share your screen,
Okay.
now that you're co-host, you should be able to share.
Okay.
And it'll take over, it'll bring down the agenda. And just replace it.
Hi. We have someone else who has joined us. Do you introduce yourself.
I'm Julia DeConcini. I'm on the board of the neighborhood association.
Can everyone online hear me? I'm kind of across the room.
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Should we tell the bright light? This one?
Yeah, pull
Okay, all right, way better. All right, we are here to discuss two projects here in Fort Lowell. Post Emerto McDonald was hired by the city and Pima County in an IGA. The county has volunteered to help out on this project because they have a very thriving historic department. And they've been sort of guiding us and helping us along the path. Both of these buildings are historic and part of the Fort Lowell Park. So they are receiving 406 bond money. The money must be spent on both Donaldson and commissary to completion. And so that is what the main focus of this project is. We've been to this group, I don't know how many times, maybe 2 times to present. Right now we're presenting for the final sort of review today. We've also presented at the chapel in sort of public hearings that open to anybody in the community to come see, to help negotiate and navigate the design as we came up with it.
If I can interrupt, just relative to budget. You've seen earlier presentations where there are other elements of Fort Lowell Park that were in the scope of work. We've been running a cost estimate as we moved. And we're told by the city that the highest priority is the Donaldson House and the commissary. And that pretty much is what the budget will stretch to. So you're not going to see some things that you've seen before because we're down to only what we have to do for the city bond program.
Those of you who have seen this presentation, it's been pared down a little bit, and it's just distilled into the important pieces, also showing the full scope of the project. So you can see a map here. This is the full extent of Fort Lowell Park minus the orchard. We had a survey done of the entire park, and you can see the two notations there, Site 1 and Site 2. Site 1 is the commissary. The commissary was built in 1860s, a part of the fort when the fort moved to this area. It was later abandoned somewhere around 1970s and left as a ruin and was melting. In the 1940s, a man named Charles Bolsius came and purchased that among a few other properties in the area, and he sort of renovated all of them. The commissary being a Santa Fe revival, so not necessarily the style that was found here, but it's a pretty magical building in its entirety as it is. The second building, the Donaldson House, there's a lot of unknowns about it. There are sections of it that are adobe. There are sections that are block, built at different phases. We suspect that maybe the core of the building may have been a piece of the park, which would have been a single building and then expanded on. It's unknown. The last photos we have that are in the historic archive are 1977 photos of the Donaldson House. We use that as a basis of design. You'll see some of those photos in this presentation. And then we've tracked it up to about, I think 1995 was the last time it was used, and it was renovated into the sort of health and wellness center that was also kind of the children's museum, and then later moved after this. So the commissary will go through a site overview, the landscape plans, and the building floor plans with you. Here's the commissary and its property line. It closes in the Clinco property, which is just north of here. They have an easement along the west side. It's a driveway. Here's the landscape plans. So the part of the design was to keep the integrity of the existing space, but to provide a space that could be a community area for the future use, as kind of having events, maybe weddings, bar mitzvahs, different things, social events. They could also still be a part of the park. So all the paths that you see in this design here are maintained, are basically what's existing now. The idea is that they will sort of create a walkway using decomposed granite and then stop people from walking in the already developed desert areas and then repopulate the desert with native plants based on the Fort Lowell sort of planting guide as well as what's there. And we're working with Wilder Landscape Group that's doing this project. In the future, or in the front here, based on our feedback from everyone, we've placed the delivery truck, which could service a future cafe that's unknown. Right now, the city has an RFP out looking for future users of this space. Along the edge, we're going to create a green edge, 3 new parking spots. Currently, there's maybe 5 that kind of feather out from different locations along the front. And then we continue the walking area along the front edge too, which has been found throughout the whole neighborhood. There, we've chosen not to use any concrete or typical sidewalks in lieu of what the neighborhood language has become. Down at the bottom, you can see that there's a raised elevated crossing. Unfortunately, we cannot get that to line up with the property based on surveys provided by the city's traffic engineers. The raised elevated crossing needs to be located at the highest point along the road, which currently we haven't lined it up with our survey based on the information we have, but it's somewhere around this area. We'll see in the next photo here. Here's an aerial of that concept showing you the 3 parking spaces, the delivery space, and then this will actually end up about, here's our suspicion.
So on this plan, the speed table crossing would be moved to like maybe the word table. I mean, possibly, or I mean, you think it's that
Yeah,
much farther,
yeah, so
farther west?
the city's rules are 300 feet from the end of the turn and or the highest point elevation on the road. So water needs to run away from it. This is an older rendering, but I included it because it just identifies the 3 new trees that we're gonna bring in. There's a historic ring in the middle of the property here, and it's a rock ring. Our plan is to maintain this rock ring. It has a date on it, 1949. Who's the person's name who probably lived there and made that? The tree was living up until 2017. We think the water table and its age just got to it. So our plan is to remove that tree, put a new tree in, maintaining the ring, but inside the ring, we're actually going to dig down and put kind of inlets to bring the water into that space instead of away. And then the light green just represents all the planting that will no longer be walking space or desert area. It's kind of turned into a free-for-all over there. Here's just kind of a sample of ideas that we looked at, of the spaces we wanted to create and maintain, using DG walkways, creating some benches. Down at the bottom there, that's an existing bench on the right-hand side in the space. The photos on the left-hand side here is a historic photo of the well, which we intend to rebuild. Our plan is to actually provide a metal frame over the well and then have a sort of a metal decking inside that and then just rebuild the existing well on top of it. And I don't think we're going to go to the extent of really using new lumber. We're just going to try to use what's there and put it back in place and maintain it. But there is a 6-foot diameter concrete ring that we've never seen the bottom of, but we assume it's 20 feet. And the city still uses this as a testing and sampling site, and they would not let us decommission this. Just another photo of sort of materials that we've been looking at. We're looking at steel grates going across waterways. A big part of the site issues are just water management. So we want to get water away from the historic adobe building, which causes, wicking and the building damage. You can see we're using DG and we're not using any concrete for new patios in the space. And then the patio brickwork that we've chosen is permeable brickwork. So it has kind of little spacers that allow the water to enter in through the brickwork itself. This is the final materials palette provided by the landscape architect. So again, photos you've already seen, the brickwork, the grading, you know, just low site walls to match the existing low site walls that are there, bike racks, and then galvanized trash cans that sort of, you know, resemble the same galvanized materials that you see on site already, which are all of the gutters. Here's a few historic photos. This is Charles Bolsius's wife in the middle, carving the doors. So all the, or probably the cabinetry, but all the doors and cabinetry in the whole space has been hand carved and made. So that's one of the iconic features of this property is the wood handmade items throughout the whole space. Another thing to note is they did this in sections. You can see on the photo on the right or left-hand side where the eastern section of the south facade was completed first, and then they moved to the western section. I think the western was more damaged and has more of his influence than the rest of the building. Again, just some more historic photos so you can see, you know, originally it had kind of a 1940s landscape, and since then is overgrown to be natural. That's what we're aiming to maintain.
That's the well in that bottom.
Yeah,
Bottom left picture.
yeah, and that's the tree. The tree's small in that photo too. So here's the new, well, you've seen this plan, but this is the new design plan for the property. And I'll just walk through and sort of highlight with the mouse what the changes are. So first change here is there was a bathroom and a closet, and we have chosen to sort of open that up and create two restrooms in this space because we've identified this as the possible cafe, and to provide, you know, restrooms within the space is really important to us. There'll be two new brickwork patios on the exterior of that space. And when you see these little icons, those are the compressors for each one of the units. So unfortunately, we were forced to put two sets of the compressors inside the courtyard, and we battled very carefully not to have anything in the courtyard as possible. Moving into the second unit, so this is the second unit here. This is the original bathroom, and our intention is to keep this one original without remodeling it or doing in the plumbing. So we realized that you know, redoing the plumbing on every one of them is kind of or redoing the plumbing on historic bathrooms would be this daunting task, and it makes it easier for us to sort of renovate them. So this one was the one we chose to save. Then here in this space, which we're calling, you know, kind of a bump out, it was a bathroom and a tiny kitchenette in the smallest unit in the center of the building. And this is where we've chosen to put the single ADA restroom with a changing table and an ambulatory restroom. So it will have ADA access off the porch into both, you know, through the vestibule into the room. And then it's, you know, adjoining, I guess, studio apartment that existed is so small. So we kind of took advantage of that and built a wall to say along inside here where we could provide the vertical air handler, electrical panel for the units along this whole corridor, and another vertical air handler for this fourth unit space over here. And one of our moves in the majority of these spaces is that if we weren't completely redoing the bathroom, we would put the air handlers in the restroom because they all had bathtubs and or showers. So we've removed the showers, and then in lieu of those showers, we've placed vertical air handlers. So there won't be any mini splits or things along those lines, and there'll be forced air condition. And then moving up, there's a little patio. Well, my mouse is not keeping up with us. There's a little patio here, and we're gonna develop that. So we're having some issues in this patio. It doesn't have proper drainage.
Where is it? I'm sorry.
It's the one with the
Lost.
X.
Okay,
I
I
can't-
got you.
my mouse
I
is
can see it now.
dead
Yeah,
here.
I see
Thank
it.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the hidden patio. We're gonna be putting brickwork in there, creating a French drain. Currently on the north west corner of that building, we're having some pretty serious settling. We don't know if it's over time. We sort of suspect it's in relationship with the copious amounts of rain we've had in the past couple of years. We recently did a renovation at the park for the museum in the kitchen, where the historic raw adobe had delaminated from the building and then fell over. And there we had replaced it with stabilized adobe and attached it back to the walls. Moving into the final unit here, which is the 5th unit. The only big change that we've done inside this unit is the restroom. It had almost a jacuzzi tub and a shower in there, and we've basically taken those out and replaced the air handler and the electrical panel in there. The kitchen was kind of a half kitchen and only had historic cabinetry on the west wall, so we've decided to take that cabinetry out and then put it on the east wall right behind the back of the bathroom. Right, oh man, I got that delay there. So the newest thing that we've included since you guys last saw this was we originally had a air handler in this top corner of the living room of the 5th unit. And right now there's a kind of a swamp cooler tower with a master cool on the outside and a hole through the wall. And we've decided that we would like to build basically a mechanical room on the north corner that would be small enough just to fit the air handler. That north corner is, covered in plants and is the least visible elevation of the whole building. And by doing that, we wouldn't ruin the inside of that historic living room. You'll see that moving forward. So here's just a color-coded diagram of sort of how the spaces work, just so everybody in the room can understand them better. The light blue here, starting from the left, is the west building, and that's the one identified as the cafe. The yellow is unit 2, which is a small, beautiful little space. The green and the orange there in the middle were originally unit 3, and you can see that we've just made unit 3 one space, and then the green will be the ADA new restrooms for the exterior as well as people visiting the site, because not all the bathrooms will be able to meet ADA standards. The darker red, again, unit 4. The purple is that hidden patio, and then unit 5 here is the darker.
Okay, go back to that. for a
Yeah.
minute. So the only kitchen facilities in the west unit.
Yeah,
There are
we've
no-
We've removed all the sinks out of the kitchens because we don't know what they're gonna be. If there's a gallery and there's a sink sitting in the middle of the kitchen, it didn't necessarily, make sense. Also, it's just an added obstacle to bring the water and sewer to. So we strategically made moves to do the least amount of impact on the floor, the existing floor that's in. So all the bathrooms that are getting redone minus the one in unit 2, we'll probably
or
remove
really
this.
just bathrooms or hand washing.
Yeah, and we'll remove the floor, the concrete floor there. Because we didn't want to have situations where we were cutting across existing concrete. Because the floors are, I think, have a level of integrity. They're all, I think it's integral, not integral, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Oh, it's probably concrete.
Yeah, they throw the,
Probably.
yeah.
I guess I'll follow up on that question, because I know at some point there was talk of this becoming like an event space.
Mhm.
And if you had food, I mean, even if it's not necessarily fully prepared there, you may still need a full kitchen to do things, or did you have a different idea? And I mean, I don't think we would use the cafe.
I mean, we were encouraged to not develop a full kitchen.
Okay.
None of these kitchens really are have any integrity to be a kitchen anyways.
Yeah,
So-
doing a commercial kitchen would be prohibited on 10 other counts. The assumption was it's an event center and folks would bring catered food to it. Nothing but food trucks on that side.
Food trucks.
So our plan for the kitchens is just to replace the countertop and then to repair and re-oil all the cabinets.
So what kind of kitchen is in the west? Is there a stove in there?
Currently, the west unit is being treated as a TI space because we don't have a user, and we in our plumbing have had everything brought up to this back window here because it was actually a door. So you could see it was a door that turned into a window. So that's going to be our access point to break through the wall and the slab. And in that room on the west unit, that slab is been cut apart anyways. So we feel less guilt tearing it up.
So the kitchen will be put in by the tenant. It'll be a very minimal kitchen, not commercial kitchen, with a small cafe kitchen.
So probably maybe 2 floor drains, hand washing. In that unit, the west unit, the sink will remain. So we will keep the integrity of that sink.
Reason I ask is that we have a kitchen here. That's here. But it really, it's not enough. For most catering.
Well, that's what we felt, and we didn't want to take one of these spaces and turn it into an entire.
No, and I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
commercial, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I
the
think,
extent to which somebody would actually use it. Ours is too small. There's one microwave.
There's no stove.
yeah,
And
yeah, and that's sort of how we saw it too. So we,
is that one big enough to accommodate a decent size? The west unit.
yeah, well, I mean, this whole room in the corner, the southern western corner is basically designed to be empty. I believe the hot water heater will stand in that space. There's gonna probably end up having to be a mop sink, a 3 sink for washing.
We looked at some models of small cafes. This will be able to handle what they typically.
And then, are you done with that? Okay. I also have a question to talk about the sewer. Is this piece of property on sewer or something?
It is on sewer. We had it scoped up. It looks like everything might be cutting through that patio in the purple. They couldn't get any further in there. We need to actually dig up and put clean outs in there in order to get further. So we scoped it out of every building, and every building has cast iron up to about 20 feet, and then it goes to clay. Our plans are to probably line the clay, and then we'll go case by case with the cast iron, decide whether we're going to line it or just bring in new piping. But the way that we've set ourselves up is that we can do new PVC piping out of all the bathrooms.
And does that go down? Fremont?
Ties into Craycroft. The main manhole is just north of Old Fort Lowell on the west side of Craycroft, I think about 20 feet. So I'll walk through these. So this is the ADA restroom, and this is where we will be making one physical change on the exterior of the building, which is this door in the photo to the right. And that door is not wide enough. So our plans are to basically widen the door to meet ADA standards, and we're probably going to change the lock set on there. Right now, we're thinking that we might be able to add sort of material to the door to save the door, and make it meet our 36-inch requirement. So this, this is why this is included here, because this door, I believe, is only 2'8".
And
So
that one-
we had a 2-inch style to the existing hand-carved door, match the wood, match the material, sand it in, stain it same color. It'll change the proportions, very small enough, but we'll be able to reuse that same door.
And you're gonna keep the rental.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the lens is much wider.
Does an ADA door have to have have to be a door that swings open.
It
By
doesn't
push.
necessarily, yeah, it has to be
have a
able,
push,
well, it has to have a certain lever, hand lever being the doorknob.
But it doesn't have to be electric to, you
Does
don't
not.
have to have.
No, no. If the city feels that they want to do that, they can, and there are wireless options for that.
And if, I mean, I'm thrilled that you would use the door. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that seems like the best option. Under what circumstance would you use the door? Is there a circumstance that you wouldn't? And if that's the case, then what happens to that door?
Yeah, so we have the doors that we will use, we found new locations for them.
On this side?
Mhm. You know, we're creating 4 mechanical closets, 3 mechanical closets in the building. So we're gonna be able to use those doors that are, you know, being taken from certain spaces in those new locations. So here's a photo. This is the 5th unit looking north. And you can see on the left-hand photo, there's a wood panel up on the wall, and that is where the current vent or duct comes through for the evaporative cooler. And then the photo on the right here is a historic photo that we got out of the Bolson's archives, unknown time, but you can see that it's exactly the same as it was then. In our first iteration, we were thinking about putting the mechanical closet in that right corner of the space. And then we realized that was foolish, it would ruin the space. So this is where the exterior addition comes into.
So
So this is the current structure that's there, which is a lot uglier than the one we're proposing. And that is a
hard to get uglier.
master cool built on 2 CMU columns that's holding it up. And most people don't see this because it's buried in a jungle or desert. But our plan is to create a small closet. It'll be a wood frame closet. And it needs to meet a certain R value in terms of insulation for the machine to work correctly. And then our plan is to stucco it to match the building. It'll be wrapped up. And then for the roof, we're just going to provide a corrugated roof to match the corrugated roof that we've found in some of our photos. The porches in the courtyard had corrugated metal. And so our plan is to return that back, even though the roofs have been redone, they're just gonna put a new metal roof on there.
And those condensers, those are condensers, right, those are the boxes.
Around the corner. Yeah,
So
that's gonna
those
be-
can be screened.
yeah, this one's kind of got a screen and there's no windows where you see it. Right now, there's no plan for that patio. It's a long Craycroft. And I don't have the survey, but that patio is reaching over the property line. So we've just stuck it there. We have 3 others that do have screening walls. This is kind of a low wall outside of the stoop, so it's gonna be right here. And, you know, we may be able to tuck it closer to there, but there's a certain, you can see the dash lines requirements for access and work. And there's a little man gate right here, so that was where it's ended up currently.
That's a priceless picture.
Right, this city to some good effect.
Yeah, so then the next thing we've been sort of struggling with is the plaster finish. And it kind of became a present to us, or apparent to us, because we had some damage from one of the storms. The hail knocked the plaster off our building downtown. We have a lime plaster finish. And we went through a little bit of work trying to match or find a color that would match the building now, because the building has sort of changed colors as the dust and the water and the sediment and everything has happened. So, you know, this is a good southern elevation. I think the color is a little bit tanner in this photo, but you know, you can go look at it. And so our plan is to just find a color that's similar, probably a little bit lighter. Our guess is that it was maybe a white when it was originally done, and then this is over time Tucson soil, just staining it and leaching on it. It's also leaching colors out from the adobe that's underneath it. So,
Before you leave this
Oh.
photo, go back to that, just show me where those three. I am going to focus tonight about this parking.
oh, so this
So
is, these
right.
are the parking right there,
Okay,
this larger piece, yes,
so can you kind of
right in here.
write in there?
And that's handicap parking or is it
There'll be one
20
handicap.
minute parking?
I think it's gonna be 20 and one handicap, or maybe, yeah, probably 21 handicap.
And I'm just gonna put out there that in our guidelines, we really resist anything that will be sitting in front of the main facade.
Okay,
And so I know that we had talked about this and never, but we've been reviewing these darn guidelines and everything seems so much fresher. And the more I look at this and the thought of always having cars in front, even when people lived there, really the cars were parked in back, that it would be nice if we can do something that maybe reconsiders that. I truly understand about handicap and it's all.
well, we're really, there's a bit of a struggle here because we're offered the Atkins parking lot, which I think only has 8 parking spaces. And then the next option is the park. So to really activate this, we feel that we need at least 3 easy parking spaces in the front, as well as if we provide for a cafe, we'll need to be able to provide for somebody who just shows up to grab their coffee and go.
And I just hope that we can maybe come up with a creative solution to this that doesn't take as much of this facade out, because already at the end, I don't know what's happening on that east end and where the wall is, and are the mailboxes all going to stay in that same
Yeah, I think
configuration?
we're just, I mean, the mailboxes will,
And so
Probably
maybe
removed.
instead of in the middle of it, maybe we go to one end of it so that you get more idea of the expanse of it. I don't have,
we
I don't have
chose
an
this
idea.
spot because it's already existing. We didn't choose the spot. We're trying to maintain as much natural desert as possible.
I mean,
but I just would
You-
like
you
you
kinda
to think
need-
about it.
you don't need to convince us. I think, part of the purpose of this committee is to make recommendations to the plans review subcommittee of the Tucson People County Historic Commission. So, I mean, it's not within our power to negotiate.
Okay, well, and.
You have the right to make recommendations
And
to the PRS.
Would it be possible for Drew to finish his presentation and
Sure.
then we can talk about all of the items together?
sure, that's
Okay.
fine.
I'd like,
That's-
one other question with this photo up, and that is, are you talking about all the cluster?
The whole entire building will receive
Complex?
a new, well, basically, the plan is they're going to sit there and hit the building with, a piece of wood, and if it's hollow, they're gonna remove the hollow stuff, and if it's solid, they won't remove it,
Okay.
and then they'll come back.
So we're gonna do integral color line plaster with, I get as close as possible, but those of you who work with plaster, doesn't look like it, the way it looks, either in the sample board or when it goes up, and so it's gonna have to be sample based. We're gonna do our best to get basically a warm gray.
Yeah.
And it won't be painted, it'll be integral color, it'll age, it'll patina, the same way it's done in the past.
And it will be the smooth black plaster finish, the cool trowel finish.
Yeah, this is sand finish here.
It varies, but some of it is steel trowel, some of it's. Sponge floor.
And then another iconic piece is this blue plaster, which we plan to maintain or recreate. So that's gonna be a challenge because that blue is gonna have to be created by the mason. So we have some ideas of where to get a blue stain. We don't know how well it's gonna hold up, but, we're gonna do this through a series of sort of tests before we.
If you don't know, this building, it reappears further east as well. Under the airport.
And you don't think it's a wash?
No, that's an integral blue. Because it's slowly faded. When I first saw this building 10 years ago, it was a lot stronger. And then here's 2 photos on the right-hand side, just sort of showing you when the building was originally finished, kind of giving you an idea that it looks like it was within a white creamy color, but again, black and white photos. And then here's just of the struggles that we're having, just so you know how we're working it. So more than likely, we're gonna choose kind of a warmer gray. We're gonna look at other products, but then, we'll use either whatever percentage to find the color that we're looking for. So this is one of the touchier subjects, is lighting. Because we're re-putting lighting on this building and we're getting permitted, it's gonna be required to meet the dark sky ordinance of the city of Tucson, and it will have to have a full cutoff, as well as not allow lighting above. So this is the light that we've chosen, and we've used this light on a similar project. This is the Simpson Row House, which is down on Simpson in the barrio. We chose to use this light, and here's an example of its finished photo, which we feel came out amazing, and I think we won an award for this, so you have an idea of what it looks like and how it functions. And we're going to use the same, this is an 8-inch at 3,000 lumens, or 3,000 kelvins. I'm not sure how that works. So
Light color, 3,000 color.
and more than likely it'll be black. I think this photo is a bronze. That was just
It's on the building now.
various different kinds of lights, but they're kind of a lantern, which is we can't get rid of them. Probably that. Silver, rusted, bronze, gold. Each one of them's kind of different.
Do you think that they were supplied from Nogales? Are they
No,
like that
no,
style?
this is
or-
a standard American.
Oh,
light.
just like
Yeah.
hardware
Yeah.
fixtures from the 40s?
Yeah. But unfortunately, anything that has the 4 open sides does not meet code, and there's not really an option to get us there.
Is there a certain number that you need on the building? A certain number of lights or a certain
There's a certain number we can't exceed.
you can't exceed, which
Yeah.
is a bigger,
Bigger challenge than,
and you think that that will be less than what's currently on the building?
oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Street lights, so it's kind of harbor lights for anybody who's.
Those would be the top lights and just.
We were encouraged not to do any sort of site lighting to kind of keep this rural. Yeah, well, I mean, when we were working on the idea for the parking lot, we were looking here in sort of terms of the bollards that are here, how it's a railroad tie standing up with a little like half globe that's shielded. And so we were using that concept when we were working on the parking lot that got engineered on the project, so. All right, moving forward, the Donaldson House, and now I don't think anything's really
Is it
changed.
okay if we actually pause and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about the commissary,
Sure.
because they were submitted as 2 different application
Yeah.
packets?
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions.
Go back to-
Sorry, I
Why?
can't see my notes.
I love it.
I wanted to clarify the type of tree that's going in the ring, is it a mesquite?
Mhm.
Okay, lovely. I didn't understand what you were talking about with the well, is it, you're just rebuilding that well structure
Yeah,
and
well,
capping?
we wanted to demolish the well, infill it, because it's 20 feet deep, so it's a hazard.
I'm not talking about there's 2 things. There's the well structure and there's the well itself.
An actual physical well.
We're
that's
gonna
20 feet.
rebuild the well structure based on that photograph, but we're unable to fill in the hole in the ground. Because it's going to be used by sewage.
Can the well be capped and just left intact?
That is
That's what we're doing.
They
That's
won't let
what's
us, they won't let us cap it. It has to still have access.
Well, but so
Yeah.
that nobody can fall in.
Yeah.
Okay, great, but it's not gonna get enclosed in any way. Okay.
And I want it to be a wishing well.
It is by default.
It is by default. I mean, and is that something that I mean, I think we should plan for it instead of think it's not
I'm
gonna happen.
apprehensive. Well, our design goal is to keep the structure that's there and repair it, even though it looks like it's falling apart.
Mhm.
And if we make it something that people can climb on, then it's not gonna last.
But throw a corn in.
That would be the same thing.
Okay.
I had a
No
question
other-
about the brick pavers and the spacers. I don't think that there's really example of spacers being used with brick patios, but it's very common to have a sand bottom finish, so they do still allow for permeation and drainage. And I was a little confused about the material as well, like, is it a thin paver, is it a real brick, is it a tumble brick?
It's a concrete brick. It's standard brick size, which is about 2 3/4, maybe 3 inches.
It's not a paver
Yeah,
thickness, it's
no.
a full brick.
Yeah. And the spacers are just probably 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. It makes the gap
That's
larger.
what it looks like, the parking lot in the new food co-op of, just behind Fourth Avenue. It's fully paved with that material.
But there's no examples in this neighborhood.
No.
Yeah, so I think that it would be important for those patios to be reflective of the architectural examples present in Fort Lowell. And the bricks should be like a tumble brick, like an antique style brick, or pitted or rounded, not like a crisp, hard, fresh pressed brick.
Okay. I
Um,
think, but just so you know, one of the choices based on that brick was also to allow the ground to become permeable so that it can also breathe, because remember, these buildings are wicking up water all the way around it. So one of our goals was to not create a situation where we were trapping water under the ground.
I think a sand finish bottom would allow for that kind of breathing and was regularly used in the neighborhood. I know it's been done at many properties. But I think a different solution to the spacers doesn't look like anything else in the Fort Lowell Historic Zone.
This is a little too crisp.
And the crisp corners
Edges, it's
aren't
rounded
reflective
edges.
of the historic bricks that are used in the neighborhood. We didn't look at the visuals of the bike racks, but I saw them in the presentation packet and they look,
They're here.
oh, they went fast because you had
Oh.
so much bulk. But those, to me, they're not reflective of the style of Fort Lowell neighborhood. They look like a downtown stanchion of some kind,
Yeah.
like this is a hitch and post neighborhood. So I think a more creative, like steel enforced beam that has some U-bolts on it that bicycles can get on.
Which is your, the little ones we have.
The-
Just right here.
The chapel has some examples of more stylized bike racks, especially given that they'll be at the front of the building.
I like the-
How hard would it be to go back to that room for your?
You want to go back? Yeah.
These bike racks.
Yeah.
You talked about the floors some for some of the bathroom demos and the other stuff, so I just want to understand, are the floors getting cut or demoed inside?
Yeah, just in the bathrooms.
Just the bathrooms in order to bring them up into functionality, but
well,
the rest of the
reform.
spaces, there's not gonna be any saw cuts?
Try not to touch any of it. There will be saw cuts in the single room that's proposed to be the kitchen in the west unit, but
The
that,
lean-to room on the
yeah,
west
that's
unit.
already been cut up quite a bit.
I remember you mentioning that.
And the porches, you said that the porches,
Oh,
on
we're-
the middle porches are gonna be redone.
2 of the porches were pouring new slabs because they're just of heating.
I liked your idea for repurposing the door, just to try and bulk it out, even though the proportions will change, it will still essentially be the door. And in the event that fails, I guess, you got that working, I believe you. I've seen doors do all kinds of stuff. We talked about the finish already, I think. Does everybody on the board feel good about the lime, the natural lime finish? Is
I'm a little concerned about the gray, when you say gray,
Yeah.
because the gray that they used on the west, on the east department, when they were there that years ago.
That's cement.
I know.
That's a
turned out to
natural
be
cement.
Very
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah.
We're gonna try our best to get a
Warmer.
uniform, warm finish.
We're gonna do samples, basically.
Okay, and I didn't know that you used the lime product had like a name to, is it integral lime or something?
That's
Is
the
that-
color.
Rose the color.
Okay, it's not like an enhancement or some sort of
No.
polyad or
You
something.
mix color in with the mortar,
Okay,
and therefore it's integral throughout the volume of it.
I share Mary Lou's concerns about parking. And I do think that a more creative solution, working around the Atkins property to coax out those spaces and getting the accessible parking space off of Craycroft makes more sense than continuously having 3 parking spaces in front of this historic building that all these assets are being put into to not cover up with, you know, my busted Honda.
And
So-
I'm sure the shops that are there might appreciate having a little visibility instead of being blocked by a car.
Yeah, I think that I did some thinking after our last meeting, and certainly I walked further than the Atkins property to the cafe or the entrance of this commissary than I do at Costco. Like, I think it's an accessible distance, the parking spaces can be added later in the event that we find out that it's not working well, or we can't get these units rented, or people can't get into the coffee house, but I'd suggest that we proceed with caution on them. Like, we can see, we don't even have a tenant. So we don't even know if there's gonna be a cafe that needs 15-minute parking. So I think it would be prudent to consider waiting on the parking spaces.
Add one more piece
Yeah,
to
we
that.
care about them. Anybody jump in?
And I was curious, you say there's only 8 on the Atkins
Mhm.
property? And I thought we had 20 spaces there at one time when,
Well,
when we,
there's an unlimited,
well, it was still within that same, it was without going up to,
the only design space in there
It's-
is
it's
there's
currently
two, there's 2 handicap, one handicap and I think 7 regular parking spaces.
okay. And then, is there any idea that I guess it won't parallel parking along the
That would be in,
commissary side?
oh, the commissary side, well, I mean, we're trying to take the cars away from the
Yeah, not the commissary side, then I'm sorry, the Atkins
That
side.
would be in the easement. We looked at that, but we were denied that. one.
You're denied
Yeah.
that, okay. So it's kind of deciding what we want to give up perhaps. And then with the hot crossing, I wondered if there would be a way of really emphasizing that all that parking right there by the ball field
Absolutely.
on Craycroft, and then there's a hot crossing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got something else going down here.
I'm trying to look at the parking spaces, so we don't have to park about.
Oh, and I don't need to argue with that,
Oh, no,
something
you're-
argumentative. And I think that with that parking, it still comes back to how things are gonna be delivered onto those units, and should it be on the front or off to the side, and it's something that if we can just continue to be creative as we look at that. Because I think that's one of those that we wanna save the front, we wanna save that facade every time. And, I appreciate the vegetation, but I still think. we want
Yeah,
that
Absolutely.
facade. So,
I've got a couple more notes other than the parking spots too. Sorry to be long-winded. Is the telephone pole getting undergrounded?
That is a good question. That's probably up to TEP because we don't have that in our budget. And in our past
I
experience,
mean, it's undergrounded to our
Yeah.
building.
But there's still a pole on the commissary property, isn't there?
there?
It's like by the old,
see the top right?
the other,
Yeah,
the
no.
other well.
you're correct, but the other well is maintained by the city of Tucson, so they don't want to disconnect the power source from it.
Is that other well functional?
They use it as a testing well.
No, the one that's on the side.
Yeah, they told us we couldn't get rid of either of those 2 wells.
We are not doing an overhead job to the site, but we are not taking it on that.
Understood.
We
So
re-
there's
We
no-
did that we had no choice at the TIP department. And it took us
9 months and
9 months and
$180,
much?
$180,000.
We've just had multiple neighbors doing it recently. I can't believe they're paying that much to do their private residencies. Okay, well, it seems like it is a little bit far from the footprint of the commissary. It's on the same parcel, but I understand if it's being cost prohibitive. Which about in the future.
Is something else?
Yes, the roof on the lean-to structure in the west unit was not corrugated.
Had a metal roof on it.
It had a metal
Yeah,
roof.
that's in the
Yeah.
drawings too.
The new roof should be a reconstruction of the existing
It's
roof
going to be.
materials. So is that one switching to corrugated too?
That'll be metal, yes. It
It'll be metal,
I
but
think
will
it
it be
was a
like the
different-
standing seams?
wasn't
style
standing
roof?
seam, it was more of a 5V channel. So we
Okay.
can, I don't have the photos here, but in the photo, it's like a small little V.
Well,
every once in a
the
while.
same materials should be used
Absolutely.
as previously.
Well, wait, what was on the porches? Corrugated?
The porches
The
was
porches
corrugated.
had corrugated.
I love the corrugated.
They're different roofing systems. They could all potentially all come together as corrugated, but I think the original roof material should be used.
Well, we don't know how original.
Well, to the 30s restoration that we're doing. I mean, you guys just took the roof off, didn't you, or is it still on there?
Oh, it's been off for a while.
But you removed it. So
We have
you
we have a photo of it.
Yeah, so they have documentation. Let me see here. I think that's,
Okay,
Oh,
I
go
still have a
ahead,
question
Mary.
about lighting. Fixtures, I understand about the fixtures and I don't have any problems about the fixtures. They will be on the front side and the back side.
Mhm.
Is there, I guess I'm still stuck with how many, and you say it's less than that are currently on the building just because of the street, the lamp, the light act.
Yeah, it'll be less lumen.
Less lumens, but maybe,
Assuming those lights will work. Yeah.
but maybe the same number of spots, so like every open door for the bathroom, for those areas.
Yeah,
And then you said there would be ground.
no
light-
ground lighting.
No
lights
ground.
required.
When we were doing
ground
the
lighting.
scope of work across the street to add parking spaces to the lot on the Atkins parcel, we were gonna have lighting, but that didn't make the budget cut. That's not in the scope.
I had a question about the gate. I saw in the drawings, it seems like the gate that faces Fort Lowell, the vehicle width gate, I guess.
Yeah.
Is taller, in the drawings, and I just wanted to assure that the gate is
We
a
are,
reconstruction
we're
or
not
a
even,
salvage.
we're not even reconstructing it. We're gonna fix it and
Fabulous,
put it back.
okay, great, a restore, I love it even more. I wanted to ask about the unit 3 build out with the heavy equipment going inside the
Mhm.
unit. Was that on the last plans that you brought to us too?
Yeah, we just sort of made it even.
The only thing that was different is the smaller closet was in the next room
Yeah.
over.
So this closet was right here at the front door, which we were hating. So you walk in the 4th unit, you would face the mechanical closet. I cannot control this mouse here. There we go. So we moved it over here and then aligned both of these so they'll kind of act as a wall in themselves. Just basically shrinking the room by a little less than 4 feet.
And then how big does that leave the unit?
I don't have that on me right now. But it was always the smallest unit, which would be the hardest to sort of take.
Looks like it's about 13 by 13.
And does the wall build out affect any of the beaming structures? Like are the beams, like these ones have wood beams in this
They'll-
unit too,
They'll
right?
just run right through it and it'll be.
There's
they'll be
no like
plastered around.
detailing that's getting consumed
No,
by the mechanical
no,
room?
no. Some of the covers where the swamp coolers came in had hand carved pieces, which we'll save. We haven't really determined what else is gonna happen with all those pieces.
It's not my ideal solution for this small unit, which is so small already, but I can see there are challenges with having to get the equipment in also. Are there any other alternatives than putting it within the space, the interior space?
Two alternatives that we looked at are mini splits or putting it on the roof, both of which we consider to be unacceptable.
And we were told by Jody Brown not to be put. Because they would be visible from all.
There's no
Elevation.
there's no possible way the parapets could.
The parapet on the
Interior
front side is like,
2 feet or something.
not even that.
Okay.
So the only one that's really in the courtyard is that one that's behind the bathroom system.
Well, those are condensers, yeah. And then there's a condenser over here in this corner, but this is kind of a jungle. And this bathroom is going to have privacy film on it, so they're not gonna see that. Of course, this room will have a little glance of it, but
So my concern is.
Small
about
sacrifice.
noise. So if you can buy units that are. For those two
You're a lot more
spots,
quiet these days.
I know, but there's one just moved in next door to me and it's not.
I'm
So
on
it
board with
depends on
you.
the quality of it. Then if you try to get the one. I have a couple questions. About the truck loading.
Okay.
Back to that. And then David's been.
Yeah,
I think we addressed David.
I can answer that. David, that basically got value engineered out of the project. 'Cause every time we did an iteration, so we did a 25%, 50%, 100%, or 90%, the project has been estimated by Durazo Construction. We've done some of the work in the park previously, and that's sort of fine-tuned our scope. And that's how we've moved forward to where we're at. We're already over budget for both of the buildings together. The city is sort of scrambling to figure out a way to meet these needs, but the parking lot got abandoned in terms of expanding.
I don't think she's talking about.
Oh.
You're talking about the truck loading area.
No, we were talking about
David's
David's
First
comment.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't see that.
And
So
then,
how do we move forward if you don't have? parking?
Well, we have the whole
City
park
has-
too.
The city has parking requirements, right? Do they have
This-
parking requirements adjacent
This
to?
is.
This is a very
County
complicated
permit.
project.
Yeah.
We're getting permitted by the county. This, the only section of this that's been permitted by the city is through this historic idea.
so the
So you have to
county,
go talk to the county?
the county would approve using the hot crossing and the parking.
I mean, we
and
don't,
The 8,
theoretically, we don't even have any users here, so this building can be done in
okay, and the,
Well, from a regulatory point of view, this is part of Fort Lowell Park. And Fort Lowell Park has plenty of Fort Lowell Park.
and then that Neil Kronenberg has that question about parking on the north side. And I think that was never an option, was pulling it off of Craycroft.
It's showing, I mean, that parking was really maintained for the people working in the building. So the idea is, you know, if there's a coffee shop, there may be 2 or 3 people working in there at a time. And then each one of those units has one that is probably not gonna end up being paved or anything like that. It's just gonna be the dirt corral that's there, and that's how it's gonna be used.
I have a question about something that didn't come up too much on the presentation this time around. What's going on with the basement?
Well, wait, can I?
Oh,
finish?
oh, sorry.
For a minute. I have concerns about the truck unloading, loading and unloading.
So you like that version. With a truck on the other side.
Well, right now it's unloading right in front of that structure.
Well, this is the original version, where we had a side loading along.
Yeah.
The driveway,
Long drive.
that then allowed access to this back little porch on the.
Where's the door? Where's the utility access for that door?
It would either be this back door or the front door.
You see the back door? Yeah.
I mean, one of the issues we face is that individuals speak up at meetings and we get direction, and then different individuals have a different opinion, we get different direction. I think the way the system's supposed to work is this committee is supposed to function as a committee, it's supposed to make a majority recommendation. That recommendation doesn't go to us, it goes to the PRS, which is something that comes to the Historic Commission. And then we have direction, but we sort of feel like a tennis match sometimes. We get this direction and then we get a different direction, and it's hard to juggle all that and make everything
I think it's hard with this particular building. There's so many stakeholders and this is such a major renovation. So I just appreciate the design process. I know that you're coming with collaboration. So it's,
I guess
look
I'm
how many
asking-
people are at this meeting tonight. It's because this,
No, I
this
understand.
is
I
more
guess-
robust than we normally experience.
I agree with that, I'm not criticizing that, we can't function unless we have majority recommendation from this committee.
And I will tell you again that I've come from a different perspective based on this few guidelines very extensively in the last couple of months. And so it has changed how I want to think about how we're approaching. So I apologize. I realize it makes it much more complicated for y'all, but it does fall in line with protecting the facades, the streetscape every time. And if we are using that every time, I feel like I need to address it here as well.
And so, where are the dumpsters?
No dumpsters, we're just gonna maintain the hand pull garbage cans.
We push it out to the street.
And they
Pick
go
it
out,
up like everything else.
do they go out to Craycroft or do they come on to Fort Lowell?
Might go both places depending on how they use.
I think they were Craycroft, yeah.
Well, these ones were for Lowell.
Oh, yeah,
Just recently, just in the last tenants. They used to always have to go up.
Elaine, did you
About
wanna,
about the drop ceiling in the kitchen?
Oh, that's gonna be determined by, health department. So the health department requires a cleanable, smooth surface for a ceiling in a kitchen. So the option that we've come up with, it's not in these drawings, that'll end up in the TI version, whether or not we do that, will be if that space is required to have a drop ceiling in what's the kitchen.
That's already a low ceiling.
Yeah.
To the impressive space.
We would just use sort of the ACT drop ceiling, has minimal attachments, and then it would be allowed to be removed in the future if the room is to be used.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there's two.
oh, I wanted to just know about how finishing up the unloading and loading. Like, it does have to occur somewhere. Do we want them to truck it across Fort Lowell or?
on the side drive.
There's a lot of space there, right,
On that
to the
side.
west of that west unit.
Further west.
Originally, the delivery was placed south of, that's the well that's there. So it would be placed south or maybe north of this. That was the original plan.
Do you think that maybe similarly to the parking spaces, until proof of use is kind of developing, maybe we don't need to deliver this delivery truck zone until it's clear that there's a cafe that's getting deliveries?
Well, and I guess is this the final approval tonight?
This is what we're going for.
And so if we want to make that recommendation,
Then you send it towards PRS.
PRS, but if we don't make that recommendation, then it's gonna be at the front.
This is what we'll go for.
So, I mean, and the plan right now says it goes in the front, just like those parking spaces are in the front. And so, while we're not making a decision on how it gets more to the
Yeah.
west side, I mean, it could be, maybe there's even a new, I hate to destroy more desert, but we're going to
Sure.
have to,
Yes. Every hole we're digging here has to be overseen by an archaeologist. So that was another obstacle of the project.
But it calls for screening, the design guidelines call for, but not parking in front and screening parking to the rear.
I mean, we chose that based on the existing rail. So that's sort of where it went from. You guys have seen this 6 times.
I know, believe me, I understand. But, so, I guess, Brooks, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. And maybe the recommendation, when we finally get to it, is that everything is considered to be off the front and to, so that it makes it cleaner all the way through. And it doesn't necessarily talk about the drop off, it doesn't necessarily talk about the by the trees, but where it goes, but that rather the street facade stays clear and parking is not proposed for that. So,
And just to be fair, we've seen 6 versions, so.
Every time it has been different, that's true.
I don't know if the landscape has changed that much.
A lot of it's changed because the ice reactions. Which also.
Touche.
well, it's also, okay, so now I have to ask Warren a procedural question, because we have lots of people who aren't on the board. Can they speak?
You can recognize them as
Is
there.
there anybody have questions?
I have a question about the parking and just ADA access. So just, I mean, would the neighborhood be against one spot that was just solely for handicap permitted? Because I'm just thinking about somebody in a wheelchair moving all the way across the street.
Would the north parking lot be a sufficient?
There,
I guess it depends on the grade and the pathways and the quality of the pathway and the entryways. But I just, if it is gonna be a public space, ADA is not just what you're compliant with the city and build outs of that nature, but also you get scrutiny outside.
Well,
from
and maybe the bathroom is ADA,
Yeah,
is being built to be ADA accessible, and it is on the north side.
yeah. So it will get
So-
scrutiny if there's not a real close ADA parking spot somewhere. At least one.
One of the unwritten rules of the ADA is that the person who is using that disabled gets the same entry experience as someone not. So you don't,
Absolutely.
you don't get this thing go around back door.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe one of those spots does have to be, has to be. Okay.
So, the two questions. One is, does the loading zone, back to the loading zone, does that alter what's there currently, the way you have it?
No.
Everything's the same, so, and it doesn't get paved, it doesn't,
no.
okay. And then the second question, if you had that an ADA spot, a handicap spot in the front, is there a way to pave it such that it's not blacktop, or maybe not pave it at all, but have, some kind of a,
ADA would more than likely be paved in a sense. And
Yeah,
would probably
blacktop.
do
But we can
concrete.
do it with a colored concrete,
okay, so.
that's the same color as the soil.
Yeah.
That you really wouldn't see, which is what's true south of.
And then just so you're clear, like that delivery is showing a very large truck in there, but
Yeah.
this is not a large building.
Yeah.
So its delivery would be like a smaller Cisco or Shamrock Farms truck, and that would probably not be.
But it's a high one of the fridge or like make space for kitchen.
What about combining those two? Middle, like how you're saying, somebody said maybe should bring over, I know like not wanting to take out more plants and working with what we already have. But what if we did do like a shift to the left?
The basic design is all based on the existing, because that was the feedback we were getting in the last two, is that they want to be all the existing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the reminder of what these photos were showing, is that that was the original, it's designed by Charles Wilson. Yeah, so the seller is currently an alternate bid. The current bid is just to go in there and re-tuck point the seller itself. We went through a series of designs that included, that possible sort of lower landing inside the patio, which got DE'd. We looked at it with a soils structural engineer who had some ideas of putting piers in to pin it back, because we thought maybe we could get in there, which was outrageous.
The bottom line is our job is to make it safe. And the way we're gonna make it safe is by putting a fence around it, probably not a chain link fence, more of a climbable fence. And if we have enough money in our budget to repoint the stones, there's some stones that have already fallen in. Basically restructure that wall so it's safe. But the idea of using it is really a future. There's no money right now.
You know, one of our proposals was to infill it up to 30
Yeah, it's gonna
inches, but the city kind of made it clear that they want to keep it open because they liked that original idea of kind of.
That's cool.
But we can't not touch it because it's a safety problem.
And you could keep it really simple and use wire fencing like this. No pine or
We have to
barbed
stop
wire,
kids.
but she's like, that's really common.
Is the fence, can it be low? It doesn't need to be like a 6-foot perimeter or anything, right?
It probably should be like a pool fence, at least 4 feet. Don't want kids flying.
It's an 8-foot hole. Yeah, it's been an obstacle.
We've been timing it
Been
for
playing it
years.
the whole time. I don't know what to say. It's right there. It's a hole.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody signs it, please. Okay.
Should we make a motion with recommendations? Did other people want to talk who are in the room?
Just want to mention that David has a comment in the chat. So,
Can you read it?
yes, it says, I am not particular. David, do you want to speak up?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's before you. I guess there is this tension, I think, that we're all trying to negotiate in terms of wanting to maintain something pristine after it has been renovated, and a lot of time, effort, and resources have been invested in it. I understand that. On the other hand, I think the point of this is making it viable through use. And I just don't think, in a sense, that maintaining it in a kind of unadulterated or pristine sort of thing is just incompatible if we're going to think about guaranteeing its preservation and upkeep with some kind of functional use. So I think there's some sort of space in there where we've got to make some concessions. Would I rather there not be cars parked in front of it? Yeah, I suppose. But I think that, in a sense, is the price, or one of the prices, that we're going to have to incur as a neighborhood and as a city if we want to promote use of the building that will in turn promote preservation and upkeep and maintenance. I know that runs counter to the balance of opinion, I suspect, but I'm just not sure that we're necessarily going to resolve this tension with any kind of creative solution here, period.
And I accept that information, and I think as a group, we need to address it. Margot, do you have an opinion?
Actually, I concur with David. They've always had parking there. I know it's been, they haven't rented it out since I think they stopped renting it out shortly after the city took it over.
2000.
And, I agree with David.
I'm still in favor of making every effort to remove the parking from the front of the building. I'm not an expert on ADA accommodations. I 100% believe in accessibility. I'm wondering if, Fort Lowell Park is an accessible park, and there's lots of places in the park that are accessible and far away from the parking. I'm just wondering what are the spatial requirements here between the front door and somebody ambulating or using an assistive device to get to the door? And if there can't be consideration to have the accessible parking in the Athens parking lot.
Just so you know, though, if we use that as our accessibility, there's gonna have to be a new path created from that parking all the way to the commissary.
The Americans with Disability Act is federal legislation. Its key word is reasonable accommodation, and that's the standard. It is not enforced by the city, the county, or anyone else. It's enforced by the district attorney. So anyone who feels like this has not met the Americans with Disability Act doesn't file a lawsuit. They don't go to the city, they don't go to the county. They pick up the phone and they call the federal district attorney and say, my rights have been compromised. There is a situation that doesn't give me reasonable access to the site. So it's a little, particularly with historic buildings, it's a little bit of a tricky problem. You would expect that historic buildings get a lot of leeway. Kind of the opposite is true. The historic standards get relaxed in order to be able to accommodate the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's kind of like the get out of jail free card. If you're getting a historic, people say, oh, okay, yeah. So we struggle with this on every single project we ever do.
So from a board perspective, because you're telling us if it can't be on the north side and in order for it to be at the Atkins lot, it would require more flat at grade paving or, so
We'd have
that
to create something.
create something, but those are kind of the options, parking in front of the building or figuring out how to make an accommodation to get it across the street. Is that the kind of what we're whittled down to? I still feel every effort should be made to put it across the street, providing that is meets the standards of accessibility for our alter-able community.
And I am concerned about the aspects of vehicles coming into the front of that building. And just wondered if there was something that we hadn't thought of, and I think creative.
So should we try a motion or was there more?
Any other discussion from?
Some of the details, do you have read the details? What kind of
I mean, we view the fence as a temporary installation. It's a reversible installation, which is may or may not be covered. In other words, something temporary. We're going to try to do something as nice as we can, as long as we make it safe.
Is this for the side? Yeah, I mean, no, I was just asking what level of detail.
So could I ask again? I'm left still rather confused about the possibilities of parking on the north side. Is that the Adkins property? Is that what that appellation means?
The Atkins parcel is south of Fort Lowell.
Okay, so right across the street,
But there's
right?
an existing parking lot that has 10 spaces in it. That's been fenced off for all but a few days.
And so that would be available or is not available?
It is
Would not.
It is available and it has two handicap spots that are paved. I can't remember what surface they use, but they have a different.
But we should be
surface.
clear that that parking lot was constructed not to serve the commissary, but rather to serve the parade grounds immediately to the east of it.
I mean, it's,
So that's why they're down south in that parking lot.
but it is all one park.
Agreed.
So, yeah, I mean, okay.
But even at the museum, you've got some ADA spaces right there.
The pool has an ADA space right in front of it too.
It's pretty common in any structure, any parking lot you go to, the front door has the two spaces. Even though there's an accessible path, 100 yards away from the space. It's pretty standard to move in.
So if I could follow up a little bit, so there is the existence then of those roughly 10 spaces across in the Atkins,
Correct.
of which, I don't know, 1 or 2 are ADA compliant spaces.
Yes,
And that's not, so even accounting for those spaces, we would still, or your plan still would project the need for those 3 spaces in front of the commissary. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
well, what I said earlier is that parking lot was created so that those ADA spaces would serve the parade grounds of the Athens parcel.
Okay.
So there's not currently an accessible route that gets you out of the parking lot to the north, down the road of Fort Lowell, across the road and into the commissary.
Okay, so for the purposes of the
Except
commissary, those are not ADA compliant spaces then across the
that it's
street.
our thought that if you had an event, people would park in that space and walk across the street, which is why we're doing that crosswalk.
And
And
that's
some
not a
people-
signalized crosswalk for me, right? So
It is
there's,
not a
so
signal.
really for an ADA path, it would be C at Great Route where I think that's, I mean, I'm not
Okay.
sure, but. it's
Well, no,
probably-
you can have an ADA path across Fort Lowell that's not a hall crossing.
Sure, but I mean, for safety, I think that's.
Yeah, but part of the reason
usually
we
ADA.
pulled it west is that City of Tucson was concerned about someone coming around too quickly south on Craycroft, making that turn too quickly onto Fort Lowell, all of a sudden, there's someone in the crosswalk that thinks they're safe. So we've moved it 150 feet to the west for 2 reasons. Number one, it increases the safety of that blind turn. And number 2, it happens to also be at the high point of the survey, which allows water to drain east and west instead of water trying to get through.
And then the city has pushed it more to the left and west.
They're
That's
asking.
based on their.
And it's not in our scope, it's not in our drawings. It's a city project.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do the motion. I know that we may not be in total agreement as a board yet, but I'm gonna try to put everything into one motion. I move that we accept the plans as submitted with some recommendations. I recommend that every effort be made to remove the parking from the front of the commissary and to use the parking lot resource immediately to the north of or south of Fort Lowell in the Atkins property. That the brick patios not have spacers and that an old looking brick be used.
In the sand finish.
Or whatever you need to do for the breathing and comfort of the restoration of the patio. That the bike rack should be more aesthetically appropriate to the Fort Lowell neighborhood. Similar to the chapel or a kitchen post concept, some other kind of creative solution that's more appropriate. That I think that's everything. Yes, add to.
Can I just add to that motion on my amendment?
Yes.
Okay, because we want the line finish to be tan in color, not gray. And the integral blue to be blue, not turquoise or some other variation. The corrugated metal roof on the porches and the original roof on the room that had a metal roof had some different name, but that one. And I also, that, I wrote down lights, but.
I'm thank you for adding those amendments that were also discussed. Any other board members want to chime in with amendments?
That you're putting loading in the parking.
Oh, I said that at the front,
That's
at the
different.
beginning.
That was that
Oh.
part of the parking, that, yeah.
Um, a suggestion that every effort be made to minimize the loading truck's arrival and departure as much as possible to minimize the visual impact of a loading truck anywhere near the commissary. Okay,
Amazon hover it deliveries.
Does that
or
mean move
something.
it, or does that mean leave it where it is and just have very few trucks?
Effort to make the move to the side. Yeah. think
I
that was-
mean, I see the car's gonna come for 15 minutes, do its dolly run and leave. To me, it's different than having somebody sit and work on a computer in a cafe for 2 hours. It's just a different type of temporary use of space than a real true parking space. So I do see it as kind of distinct from this conversation about pedestrian or regular vehicles using the spaces for long periods of time.
Well, they're all, those three are short periods of time, except for one.
So
Those are
wait,
20 minutes.
so-
Yeah, they're all 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
But they're anticipated to be full one after another because there's one 15-minute customer coming after another. But the truck's only gonna come once or twice a day at most and leave. So to me, I do see it as distinct and it's not carving any desert. It's pulling into an existing drive to make like a UPS drop. So for me, I'm okay with the current delivery space. I think it's better than trying to have trucks back into the driveway and carving out pristine desert on the west side of the property and thinking about trying to navigate that driveway with large trucks when needed. It's impossible and they'll take out more vegetation. So from my perspective, I think it's okay to use that piece of dirt to drop off stuff.
So we're having some discussion now, so we're discussing, and without a second, did somebody want to, because we'll go back to discussion after a second is given.
Okay, so the motion stands where we left it off, I think, which is that we're discussing these motor vehicles, trying to move those across the street, but the deliveries can take place.
That was your
Yes.
recommendation. Is there a second for that motion? I'm looking-
Does the motion as it stand now include the recommendation to try and move the delivery truck somewhere else, or is that
No,
not? No, okay.
We're gonna discuss that after we get the second. We need to have the second so that we can go to discussion.
oh, excuse me,
Okay.
I didn't realize that was the procedural.
Yeah, that's the procedure. Yeah.
Your apologies.
So,
I second it.
thank you, David. Okay, is there any discussion?
So,
No, none, David, nothing?
well, I get, I'm not sure if this is helpful, but I would agree with Briggs, on her thought about the temporary and transient nature of a delivery truck there taking no more than whatever, 15 minutes or a half an hour out of the day.
And I wondered, when we go back to that plan, there is that drive, and you really don't drive into that part. There's where the gate's gonna be.
No.
Right?
No,
What are you saying? We're not gonna drive that
no,
gate,
Never gonna drive.
but we would have that gate mark. Can the gate in the area not be the delivery area? Be the delivery drive?
no, the gate's gonna be the main entrance because all the doors along the main facade do not meet ADA standard, as well as they have a small concrete porch there. So we would have to grade that and change every building. So we utilize the interior of the courtyard to access the building. Because the majority of the doors at the back of the units all are two double doors.
It's going to look very nice.
Is there a way, I just keep seeing that, like now we've got this drive in front of the building for this delivery truck. That. Great delivery
Is
truck.
it existing? Did you
Yes,
say?
yeah, that is the main, this will become the main foot traffic.
Pedestrian.
And
That,
you see, the landscape architect has separated it from the road using the
Yeah.
green barrier, which is the plan by pulling the walkway back from the edge of the road.
This is an earlier.
this
plan.
is the plan with the drive off to the side
Right.
that,
Right, it's changed.
that,
So now it's a direct access across Fort Lowell to that pedestrian entrance,
But
right?
this is gonna change because based
Yeah.
on what we've gathered in the past, like 2 weeks, it's
It's
gonna
gonna
end
go
up
further,
being here.
but then they'll use the path and
And we're-
come in that main
yeah.
pedestrian
Yeah.
entrance. It'll be kind of this nice walkway with the landscaping to enter.
and I am, and this goes out to y'all, I am just of a feeling that the drive access for the delivery truck could still come off to the side as opposed to being on the front. And yeah, it might be 15 minutes, but I leave it to my, to my colleagues, there's 3 of you here. There's 2 components and, you know, we need to, any other discussion about that? None. Dave doesn't have anything. Margot, nothing.
Well, what is your, what were you saying, the very last part? You
Well,
heard the delivery on the side where it was originally proposed?
yes, to keep it there. And if you look now, the delivery truck goes over the path, the walking path, the delivery truck
Uh-huh.
building, and now instead of being off to the back and
I mean, the parking lot goes over the walkway.
the parking lot.
The existing parking lot on the south side crosses the walkway.
Yes, it does. And yeah, but it's the one that's on the north side that I was considering to take it into that. So, I do see it. Wait, speak up, Julia. I don't, yeah, I know.
Okay, I do see the value in having the ADA stuff. I feel like we're really pushing people farther and further away. People there, it will make it draw more. Hopefully, they can all the time. Do people like the idea of saying we can try proof of concept? We can always add parking spaces in the future, but we're not gonna be able to take them away once they start getting used. And like seeing some tenants get into these buildings and can this topic be revisited? Of these 3 parking spaces? And for the time being, not require them and then see what kind of tenants are utilizing the buildings.
I think you're the only one who's objecting to the 3 parking spaces.
That was my concern.
There's 3 parking spaces.
Absolutely. I could see it on the ADA, the handicap
Here's
space.
one good argument for you.
Yeah.
By luck, we're being permitted by the county. If this was permitted by the city, we would have to go through the development package. And we would probably have to put more parking.
More parking than we see. And
And all the rules would be controlled way more than that.
okay,
I'm not hating on you
No, no,
guys.
no.
I'm just saying, we're attempting to get away with a lot of stuff in this building because of its historic integrity.
And to be clear, I mean, Corky said earlier, ADA is a federal guideline, but we do review for it. Like, it is something that gets reviewed.
But
I'd just like to finish up on the loading part and then you guys can go on with the motion. I believe the loading trucks can be moved to the west, not to the driveway. It can be moved to the west with minimum disruption of desert. It can vegetate in front of the main door of that cafe. The main door of cafe is gonna be at a truck. Or parking in front of it. Could be vegetated. Make that much prettier by moving the trucks up. That's all I can see.
so the the way I see the recommendation then is
Want to just go ahead and
make it addendum,
Yeah.
can I try an addendum? Is that for this parking piece, we still consider what we need for parking in the front, and if we, since we don't have any vendors that we're building for, I would say consider keeping the ADA spot and make the 20-minute parking take, I would eliminate it. And make the delivery truck come off from the west more, so it's not in front of the building. I think there's options to that. And whether it's just to the, not to the west, yeah, to the west of the building, or if it's using the driveway, I don't know. That one's
So
to you.
is this being offered as a friendly amendment to the seconded motion?
Yes,
And I would not support that.
okay. Okay. So there's Margo, and what would you support, David?
I'm sorry?
What parts of it are you not supporting?
Moving the delivery to the west by using the easement property or the easement driveway.
Okay. Well, that wasn't that using that wasn't, it was just moving it to the west, so it's not in front of the building. It could be the easement driveway, or it could just be west of the building.
Like at the corner, at the end of the building?
Yeah. But
If I could offer some additional information, not an opinion. There is a mound of unknown origin that sits essentially under the word area, where it says clean area. There is a mound that is raised about 2.5 feet. Mounds and historic sites usually are not something we want to mess with. So putting a driveway through that word area would take some research.
okay.
We're gonna know.
Not-
According to the Atkins white paper, this spot right here is the trash site. And now, if you go in the back and you look at this adobe wall melting in the back, there are pottery shards coming out of the wall. It's good. So, you know, whether they use that dirt from that pile to build this entire building, I don't know, but.
So putting it through there might entail a 3-month archaeological excavation that would slow down everything.
And swallow all of
Yes,
So, I think it's important to consider as a component of preservation, and preserve the landscape as well, right? And preserving the landscape means that there's an open spot there, right? Use it. It doesn't mean, you know, I mean, yeah, I understand the desert back there would easily be modified, we can vegetate all this, but preservation doesn't just include structures in my mind, right? It includes
that's right.
everything around it.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's the basis of the current scheme.
Mhm.
I also would say unless you're doing this stuff. At least for left hand. That don't have kitchens. It doesn't seem that it's not large enough.
They're gonna see a truck in this.
Yeah. Okay,
So where are we? So it's, I think,
so there's no amendment.
no amendment to the motion. Okay.
wasn't accepted.
It
by the
wasn't
board.
accepted, yeah, okay. Okay, so. Are we vote again, or are we done?
Should we review what we have?
That might be good. I think that's
Okay,
very
we
good.
got it all.
I think so. I believe that the items that were discussed, I'm not totally clear. I'm gonna try the parking one. We're gonna let the delivery trucks stand. But every effort should be made to remove those 3 parking spaces until proof of concept with some tenants. We can always discuss adding parking there in the future if we're really finding that the functionality of the building can't flow without these 3 parking spaces. Also that the brick pavers should be an old looking style brick and that we shouldn't do the spacers. That the roofing material on the lean-to should be replaced with, should be,
That's in the drawings now.
it is, with the 2 types of metal roofing systems or.
And that is yet to be determined, I guess.
Well,
Because of what was there is not, we can't replace it exactly.
you can't.
No, I mean, we have the same problem with Teatro Carmen.
The profile doesn't no longer exist.
Yeah.
We're getting as close as we can. The identical profile doesn't exist.
I see, but it's not a corrugated. It will be something similar as best you can, matching the, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I thought that there were multiple, that we were all going, all corrugated. The bike racks should be appropriate to the neighborhood. The plaster finish should be warmed up a little bit more on the beige scale than the gray scale, with that smooth line finish.
Just so you know, we have not chosen a color.
Okay, but
So that's, yeah.
but you don't have to come back to it.
This is a recommendation.
Ideally, we just do lime white, which was probably originally used, and then let it fade. But it's more to prepare you guys for that whole look is going to change. It's going to.
Keep going.
And I believe in your initial addendum, you had mentioned one other item, Mary Lou.
I had the interval,
Okay.
that blue be blue, like the samples.
That's
you
what we
showed.
want.
Yeah, we're blue, and I was worried about that.
Well, it's
that's-
noted in the historic register.
Okay.
Well, yeah, so I think those are, it's actually got whittled down here because you did bring in pretty good plans and we were able to bring a lot of clarification to this through just answering your questions. And we appreciate the long format collaboration that's been happening with multiple partners to bring this motion to the table.
Noted.
So that's the motion.
That's
That has already been seconded by David, so I think you guys could do.
We're done.
Well,
Well, we can do a vote. Oh, we
unless you want to discuss further. That's up
No,
to you.
anybody want to discuss this? I don't. Okay, all right. David, in favor for this?
Yes.
Yeah, Margot,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
I'm in favor as well. So it passes unanimously. Okay. You didn't like my wishing well, though. Didn't get in, didn't it? You did. If you know it's gonna work, they're gonna throw money in. Just keep the way.
Should I do the lights again for the Donaldson house?
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we have to leave.
Oh, I'm
Thanks for
sorry
letting
you
us
do. I'm
sit in.
sorry you do too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're just with our kiddos, so thanks for letting us sit in. We'll catch up we'll connect to the Zoom
And
maybe
okay,
and connect to the rest of the meeting.
and appreciate your input very much. Thank you.
Thanks for all of your thoughtfulness.
So it's on recording, if you want to listen to the whole thing again.
I will, I'll listen to it,
Take notes.
yeah, on repeat. Thank you.
You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. Donaldson House, same sort of plan here. We'll do a site overview, the landscape plans, and then the building floor plans. I kind of gave you a brief overview, but the Donaldson House was a residence for as long as we can figure until about 1980s, I think 85. It was actually renovated by Earl Kai Chan, which is a famous architect. He doesn't have any of his elements in this building, but it was created into, well, health and science museum, which I think later then became Tucson's Children's Museum. So here's the site. The Donaldson House sits on the site with the historic corrals in the back, which is the L sort of shaped ramada. That ramada overhangs the existing, or what's left of it, adobe wall. And just so you know, that is a part of our scope of work, is to do a sacrilegious sort of plastering of that wall, so it's sacrificial. I'm an architect, so
Hopefully
it's
not
religious. It's religious. So here's the current plans for the new scope of work. And this is an existing parking lot. The lines have surely faded away, but that's what's there. All the walkways are pre-existing. Everything on the site, there's not much changed on the site as a whole. So sort of the vision was this was the Hardy Donaldson house, and the plan was to renovate this into a set of office spaces. I don't know, those of you who participated in RFP or RFQ, there were kind of some questions about it being used differently, which the city had agreed to. But yeah, the plan is just to provide office spaces and a comfortable outdoor spaces that exist in the back. The plan with the landscape architect was to basically leave it untouched. There's so much growth in the back that we're actually going to use selective removal. There are a few non-natives that have found their way back there that we definitely remove. There are quite a few existing trees that are dead that we're planning on leaving, as long as they're kind of out of harm's way, because they still provide a natural space for birds. The main issues that we have with the site, and we've done a hydrological study, but the water from the park is supposed to cut through this walkway, run along the edge into that small grate there. For what has happened over time, and we're not exactly sure if it's a combination of the surface changing in the park, as well as the storms that we have been receiving have gotten greater. We have a large sheet flow that moves this direction across the site and moves this direction here. If it's bottleneck in the back, runs through the back and has deteriorated all of the walkways. And we'll see that in some of our photos. The landscape architect is proposing a series of berms, which would allow us not to disturb the dirt. We would actually bring infill in to create these berms to slow the water down and capture it. And then the colored trees are the new trees that we would be adding. This purple trees noted here, we went through a historic review with the landscape subcommittee. And originally it was a mesquite, but if you know anything about mesquites, they lift things up, they look for water, and this is too close to this courtyard, and I think that's why it got removed, and there's a lot of damage in this courtyard. So our original plan was to provide like a canyon hackberry, which would kind of be appropriate on that space, but we had some pushback, and so I think the tree has been chosen to be either a Palo Verde or
Desert Willow.
Yeah, desert willow, something along those lines. Yeah,
And
just
the
kind of,
green one is.
the green one, I don't have a landscape, it's probably a mesquite. I mean, there's no problem putting the mesquite far away, but as you see, any
yeah,
sidewalk that there's a mesquite against, it lifts it up. So some of the issues that we have in this is that this courtyard is closed in and had 3 downspouts, and that's what those arrows are pointing out on the building. And you'll see in the future, we're going to move the water away from those and just change the side of the downspouts so we don't end up in the courtyard. And it's kind of a low spot comparatively to the whole site. Those are the 2 trees that we'll be adding to the front. Here's the existing, as you can see. You can see how the water getting trapped in the courtyard has badly damaged that east facing wall.
Is the original door behind the boards?
That is the original door.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, so the original door was actually, we think, swung in. And then it also had a set of screen doors. Our current plan for this door is that we're going to treat it as kind of a gate or a shutter. And it will remain there. We're going to sort of create a frame so it doesn't fall apart anymore and kind of a top metal edge to protect it. The idea is that when space is being used, the doors will swing open. They'll probably lock in place with some kingpins. And then we're going to design kind of a arched door to fit with inside of that. It's a little bit more modern because that does not meet the correct height, which is 6'5". And we are required for 6'8". So this is something we're going in with the design review to try to hopefully encourage them. We have 2 other doors on the front facade under that porch that meet the requirements. So they could be used as an ADA access, which might require us to create some kind of path to that porch. But most likely, the height doesn't really affect the ADA person. It affects the tall.
So there are doors in that courtyard or around the back?
Well, you'll see. It's in the
In the
patio.
back, in the back.
Rear of the house. Yeah, so in the rear of the house, we're actually going to utilize the existing brick and take everything that's sort of on the site and salvage it and then rebuild this whole patio. Because currently, well, you'll see as we move forward. And then in the back corner here, there was a brick patio that we saw in the historic photos, but we've just opted to do compacted T2 in lieu of that. But in response is a historic move to keep it. And then here's some photos sort of the existing or the original and then the existing, and you can see that the trees and the water have just eaten it up. And that bottom left corner photo right behind there is a sinkhole that's probably 2 feet deep by 5 feet wide. Part of this sheet floor issue. And then here's just more photos of what's existing. This bottom left-hand corner shows, there's kind of an invasive grove of Palo Verde trees, and our plan is just to select kind of the most mature, healthiest, furthest away from the building, and then selectively remove some. And the right photo shows an existing mesquite tree. It's questionable about its life expectancy, but our plans are just to keep those things. So here's the existing building as it is. Nothing has changed since you guys last saw this. We do have a series of walls that they enclose this historic porch. You've already seen a photo of that, and I'll show you more. Our plan is to remove these upper walls. There is a lower seated wall still there that we will keep, and to open this porch back up and activate it. We will infill the 2 windows that were here and the single window that's here, which are now doorways. We're going to bring this walkway up level with all the doors in here. This back space is actually 6 inches lower than the rest of the building, so it has a little bit of obstacle that we'll see moving forward. Here's our demo plan. So what we're proposing was this. We think that this section here was probably the original building, and then maybe this room and this room were added on at later dates, and they're both Adobe. But then the rest of it from here, this kind of flagged wing here is all CMU. So we're going to maintain that. And then this section here is CMU that was enclosing the original porch that's here. And this was the kitchen. So our plan is to remove this CMU wall that was, I'm guessing was probably built in the 70s to open up this original porch once again. And then this will become the back door. So when you walk in, you'll see back into the back patio and the porch. This was a overhang porch that then got closed in. It's a framed section and it's just rotted away and disgusting. And we're going to remove that too.
And so the north, this is
North,
north on
correct.
top.
Yes.
So this is the part that has that cool arch door is where on here? That arched entry.
Right.
Okay.
So this is the south. This is facing the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have.
That's okay. I just and because you had talked about adding an additional door behind it, or
Oh, yeah, so those doors are very old wood doors, and they kind of
They're
can't
just-
be doors.
Okay, so they're just kind
They're
of
gonna
a
act as,
feature.
they're gonna remain there. They're the, you know, if we look at the historic photos, you can zoom in and see those triangle metal elements on the door through the screen. So we know that it's the original door, but somewhere in the process it got changed. You know, and unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah, they don't look anymore. I get you.
So this is the porch that we're returning. And currently it doesn't have the clay tile, so we're bringing the clay tile back. We're gonna bring this back to its original look, and I think everything's hiding under there, minus the windows that are up against the wall. You can see
Yeah, the great house original to house.
these photos.
These are.
This is all we have. These are 1977. And it's only on this porch.
This is not fixing.
This is the south facing.
It's gonna- it's gonna be something that's staying on it. Tile.
Who said this?
That's the sign.
Oh, okay. Is this in the neighborhood? Okay.
It is, but it's possible that the terracotta was added long past the period of significance.
Well, we're storing it basically this.
Well, I mean, if they were added in the sixties, that's quite different than the original structure, but to be, you know, you're doing all this beautiful work to open them up. Okay, that's okay, let's do the rest of the present.
And what's this stuff on the?
Pardon me?
What would you use if you were using clay tiles?
Just the white roof. Remembering. Yeah, because that's what's on the backside of the building.
What's on the back side? Wood?
Yeah, a roof, yeah,
Is it coated or is it?
yes, white coated membrane.
Okay.
Yeah, both are roof.
Purchasing.
I mean, we're gonna go with what's there versus coming up with something that's not.
That's why you're here. though. And I don't think we've seen this before. The roof.
So again, just historic photos, this is what we're using.
And that's the tree that's coming out.
No, that tree isn't there.
It's gone. It's gone.
But there was a tree in the court.
Yeah.
So our plan is to replace a tree. And I believe she has chosen, you know, similar plantings to it, based on these photos. So this is the current scheme of the building. Pretty much all we've done is just remove all the wood framed spaces. This room here on the right corner, we've turned it into the bathroom. So it'll be an ADA bathroom with a hot water closet and an HV mechanical room. The kitchen, I think, is at a lower level, so the floor, it'll have a new floor, and then the kitchen will just get opened up. And the wall that divides the kitchen in this space currently is a wood frame.
So you're saying the floor will be at
Well,
level?
everything will be flush except for this back room,
Okay.
which is an office. And we're providing a ramp to come down to 6 inches. There'll be a small little mechanical room hidden here. So this will power this quadrant of the house, and this will power this quadrant of the building.
So currently, everything north of that long east-west wall is about 6 to 8 inches below it. So including the kitchen, including that new porch, and including that conference.
What type of, are you doing, concrete floors in the new kitchen floor? With the raise up?
We're on the fence about that. There's multiple different floorings in this building. So we kind of have just a note in there with the pricing, and then based on how it cleans up, we're gonna determine where it goes from there. I mean, if it is an office, it's gonna need something we can.
The current floors are concrete, covered with
Satio tile, various tile, and a lot of animal feces.
a lot of animal feces. So how well those clean up is still open to debate.
All the
It's not a
HVAC,
good place to be.
Yeah, all the HVACs on the ground now.
Yep.
Everything. 'Cause
Everything-
We showed it on the roof in the old pictures and somewhere I saw that. But
Oh,
cool, good.
yeah, no, yeah, so they'll, same as the commissary, the air handlers will be vertical and in closets. And then here's sort of the roof plan, so you can see, I mean, this will be one of the larger altercation, changes on the outside will be, we're bringing the downspouts on the west side of the building and then pulling them out of this courtyard, putting them on both sides of the building. And this always drains in the back, but we'll be adding a gutter just to gather the water and push it away because of the water issues.
One clarification about the surface hydrology. There's a ton of water coming out of Fort Lowell Park, washing across our site. We've explained to the city that that's an off-site problem that's not in our scope and certainly not in our budget to solve. And so we have just paid civil engineer to do a drainage study showing where the water is coming from, with the assumption that the city with other funding is going to solve the off-site water problem off-site from flowing across our parcel. It's not a problem to solve on our own. It's got to be solved.
Okay, so the berms that you're talking about,
It's just surface water.
I was gonna say, you don't anticipate that's really gonna take care of it. And so does that also include the wall on the Adobe wall?
Oh, yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
your sacrilegious wall?
Oh, well, the walls, I don't have that in this, I didn't include that in here. I
But
don't know.
it's,
We have the
I mean,
site plan
that's,
here.
the neighbors, they're
Yeah,
very
yeah, so we're
interested in the
gonna
wall.
fix this wall that's failed along here, I think it's 20 feet, and then there's a section right here that's failed,
Yeah,
that we anticipate fixing, yes.
and
We need the water to come out of Fort Lowell Park and go along the
Down the road.
alignment of Fort Lowell Road to Great Falls and stay away from our site.
is there anything that we could do to help you with that? I mean, anything that as a historic district board or neighborhood
Well,
that we
Probably
could
eventually,
do
but
to,
not right now.
okay,
the other problem is,
Thank you.
they're not willing to just go in there and dig because it requires.
Architect,
Yeah.
archaeologist.
And you've got ruin walls along that edge.
Yeah.
on the corner,
All the barracks.
and, trash sheets.
So, and I wanted to ask a question about one of the comments you made first. Do you think that that original Adobe piece was part of the fort?
We don't know, we sort of suspect it would have probably just been like one room. It could have been a storage space.
I mean, we know the stables part, do you know?
Yeah, John Donaldson, there, we've done an interview from John Donaldson. He said part of the house was there when they bought it, how they bought it. Something like that. I believe those were
I mean, it would make sense, it's right near the corrals, which we know what we're for.
And are you doing anything with the guest house?
Yeah, we're just gonna plaster it. I mean, we've never even been inside of it, so the plan is just to plaster it and protect it.
Sacrificial.
I got a quick question about the terracotta roofing system. So are you just gonna fix the one that's on the patio, or were you planning to do tear off and replace?
There is no terracotta there. It's just a white roof because that's been turned.
We
into-
have that photograph.
Okay, I see. It's not there's no tiles
not
up there
there now.
this time.
No.
Okay.
You have a photograph of the exterior right now?
No, I, yeah,
Not
I,
on here.
but I know what these ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not there now.
So, just to talk about that a little bit, there was also tile on the San Pedro Chapel that was removed, replaced with metal. And there was tile on the Atkins house that was removed.
Yeah, we're open, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not gonna ban that sort of at all.
And I mean, the main thing here is a precedent. It's setting a precedent on historic building for the next person who wants to come along.
I'm willing to try a motion, I think.
I wanted to have a
And
couple
then,
of questions.
we can discuss within the body of the motion, or?
To discuss a question.
Oh, Oh, sorry.
The doors and windows, do you have samples of doors, windows, and colors?
The only, so I can show you this. I mean, we have all the existing windows right now. Everything's in there. The only ones that we don't have, let's see what's going on.
What's that one window?
These two. So those are the examples of the two windows we're bringing back. And then this window here, we actually still have the frame, and it was just a fixed glass. Then this spot right here, there is a window. That is a historic window. It's sitting inside the building, and we're just gonna reuse that and put it right over the sink where the doorway is.
So they wood windows?
Yep.
Except for.
Oh, no,
Casement.
The
so,
only swing is steel casement.
yeah, the whole building is steel except for this window, these two, that one, and this window.
And those ones on the west side of the building?
No, they're newer.
They're-
The rest of the building is casement, so this is a wood casement. This actually, there's a window there, so our plan is just to put a fixed window that matches this one. But all of these steel around the whole building. This is all steel.
The fixed picture window, the one that's on the bathroom, yeah, and that you're gonna replicate again is,
Not on the kitchen.
oh, it's a kitchen.
It's just a frame, wood frame that was there, and it's the original.
With frame.
Yep.
And how big is that window?
Not very big. It's I would guess maybe 42 inches wide by 24 inches high.
There was 100% a different type of window in there than a picture window at a previous time.
Inside this was never an exterior.
It was not.
No, this whole section right here, we're opening this back up outside. So this existing is embedded into the building. So here's the plan. This is a wall that we're gonna remove all the way around. This right here is just open and it still has the frame. So it was kind of an all-in-one window and frame. The window was up high, probably 4 feet off the ground. And then this was a door.
And you're planning to put a picture window into that window frame. Is that what I'm hearing?
Just a fixed window.
A fixed,
I don't-
non-operable
yeah,
or non-operable
exactly.
window.
Part of what we would do is something, if we don't have the answer, we wouldn't necessarily go and find something that exactly matches. We would
I mean,
find.
we've got double hung windows, and we've got steel casement windows, and we have a window of an odd shape that's an unknown window. We thought the most conservative thing to do is just put-
So a third type of window for the home from the double hung and then the casements.
Unfortunately, these windows we're removing are huge, so they wouldn't
They can't be.
be used, yeah. If we do find we can, we would.
They're all steel.
So I think this is just a little bit, it's a little challenging because there's some details that are coming up in the design around the front door, the windows,
The front door is the only new thing we've options here.
and like the kitchen flooring system, just like the actual visual design details and choices.
What do you mean by the flooring system?
Well, like you said, we haven't picked one, but we're gonna pick one.
Well,
We're gonna figure something out for the door, but we haven't quite decided what we're gonna do yet. And so for me, that's okay. I just feel that those details should be coming back to the board when the time comes. That like the board is here specifically to be approving these minutiae and details for the building and so yes, the overall plan with opening up the porches is working, but I do feel I'm not understanding it was really hard for me to understand what type of window was going in, and then now that that's also getting replicated in another window. well,
Yeah, you can see it there.
Fair. These plans are so hard to read because they're meant to be printed on like architectural drawings, I think. So, what page?
Is it one of the plans
600s?
online?
Yeah.
That you could bring up?
Yeah.
Is it,
She's got it.
Page 6.
No.
Is there a way we could put it on?
can
the-
you,
Look at
yeah,
the
that's what I
numbers.
was just gonna ask, why
Can you
it,
do it on yours?
is it one of the links that's online?
Or is it?
We can do it there.
Yeah, it's just the
Or I can have it.
the
That first link
online
or the two
submission.
different links?
Now, we've lost Drew on there.
I think he's just getting a different
Okay,
file.
so
We'll pull
we're
that up.
not losing forever.
And if not, what?
And I have to say that, given that they're not changing the exterior door, I kind of don't care what they do on the inside. I'm not very concerned about the floor coming up because it doesn't change the exterior and what I'm gonna be seeing. I think the window.
This is a public building,
I
so the
understand.
inside is part of our purvey.
I understand. I'm just gonna give you my frame of reference and I think the window becomes a key piece, but if it's been there, I think it's.
It's an exterior doors. What are the other exterior doors?
Okay, so some of the doors are.
You bring those.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You guys are putting us to the test with the double submission, with both packets being enormous.
So these are the doors. Choices are single light on the single doors and then a 4-panel light on the back door. 2 back doors. Because they both face north.
So the north-facing doors are like French doors.
Yeah.
And when you call it a single light, I don't know
It's
what
just
that
that
means.
single light up above. So
There's
one
a
glass
window, there's
Yes.
a glass pane. Okay, and the one on the far right is,
bathroom door.
it's a,
Bathroom door.
that's an
camera door.
interior door. And then the arch door.
Yeah, so here's, this is an existing window. These are the 2 proposed windows. And then this is the existing fixed window. And will probably be the same used on the other side. It's on the exterior.
And is that window in scale to these other windows
Yes.
on this page? Thank you, that's so helpful. I did not know how to interpret this page fully, thank you.
And we can see it on the elevation too. There's a door here, I don't know why it's got cut off, but the door goes to the same height as the window. And then the window's actually up at like 48 inches.
And it's gonna be a non-operable wood frame window.
Well, we have the frame, we don't know what's there. It looks like it was a fixed window, but
Okay, a fixed window going into the wood frame that exists,
Yes.
just to clarify. But you're
It's
planning to
not
replicate.
proportion for a window, and you almost never see windows that are wider
yeah, it is.
than they are tall.
Yeah, do you think it was a hole for like heavy equipment at one point or
No,
something?
No,
Or
it's detailed out with, it has like 2 pin lines through all the woodwork. Goes around and it matches with the whole frame of the door. And then this part, this section. It's up here. If you look at this section is tagged as the 1948 section. So somebody went through who knew something about the building and marked what was original and what wasn't, and then gave time frames. So this section is tagged as the 1948 section. I think this section is too, but what eras those were actually built on?
And the only floor that you're changing is the kitchen floor.
Because it's 6.
Unless
6
you have to
inches.
change everything because it's destroyed.
Our goal
feces.
is to maintain the concrete.
Okay.
We may select a flooring for the whole space because it is an office space and we'll be using furniture and various things in there. But currently it's to maintain that. We have a keynote in our drawings to withhold a certain amount per square foot.
And so is this board concerned about the choice of flooring. Your choice is to maintain what you've got, knowing that if it's not good for someone,
Yeah,
you'll
well,
do something
we also
different.
have some issues like right here. There's gonna need to be some grinding done because there's a slight level change, but more than likely the concrete could be ground out.
And the front door system, we talked about some possible options.
Well, the original one was we were gonna build a third wall and then just stick a door behind it. But right now our plan is to build probably some sort of,
Sort of a black steel frame with a 3.0 door in the middle that's got a curved top. If we get the county to approve the 6.5 door, that's 6'0" on the edges. And then just glass on the sides of it, so we maintain that arch on the inside, and then the wood doors become essentially shutters, so they'll be closed when the building's not in operation, they'll be wide open.
To me, that's something that should come back for review when the design is ready. Like the doors are they're of utmost, so if you haven't decided the solution yet, we can't review it, but I think that we can, I'm actually ready to make a motion on this property, I think. I'm gonna try to do it. Is that okay with my board?
So let's go for it. Let's see what you got.
Okay, I'm proposing that we accept these plans, but that the terracotta tiles be removed in favor of a more historically accurate patio roofing material such as corrugated. And that, since changes to the front door have not been articulated in full, that should come back to the board for review for the front arched door. And similarly, any design choices that are being made for the floor that haven't been determined at this time, that should come back to the board for review at such a time. So, I think that's all I have.
Anybody want to second this motion? And then we can discuss.
I'll second it.
And is there any discussion of that recommendation?
I would say not to not suggest, but just to.
Corrugated is appropriate,
Solution, either-
or find another
or-
type of solution for the guidelines.
what if I find an old photo?
An older photo
Yeah,
that has,
clay tile.
There's some of clay tile, I mean, clay tile was really added, probably, I bet it was added in the 50s or 60s. Because that was kind of the MO around here.
That's when the whole flag section of the building was created. This whole
Do you know
section.
when that porch was added?
The porch, you don't know, but this section, using aerial imagery, appeared somewhere in the 60s.
if the back patio roof is that rolled white,
Yes,
I would prefer corrugated first, but rolled white would be my second choice, just to tie it together instead of the clay tiles, those red.
we weren't putting clay tiles.
No, but just on the front.
Oh.
So, but to put what's on the back on the front, or if we want to go with a different look for that front patio,
I think that'd be great.
I would prefer
What's on the opposite?
the
corner?
metal.
Standing seat?
Sorry?
Is opposite quarter standing seat?
Yes, but that had some.
It's definitely not original.
No,
The opposite quarters.
It's not original.
Luxury.
Yeah.
the standing seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that showed up already.
That's a different
And
era.
That's
yeah,
it's 1873.
yeah. Okay, so anyway. Any other, so the recommendation has been to make it a, more than a suggestion, to make it a recommendation to change out the clay tiles for
Appropriate roofing materials for Fort Wall historic zone.
yeah, So with that change, do you agree for that amendment, David and Margot?
And what are they they're gonna use something appropriate?
And not clay tiles.
Okay, but are they gonna come back and let us know what they're planning on using?
I think they know what is in the design and they know what we've discussed, which was the gold and the metal roofing that.
Okay,
I don't back for that. Do you, Chris?
Yeah, I think
You'd like them to come back?
no, I think we have a favor, the board is suggesting a favorability towards corrugated or a roll proof or the other design materials that are in the guidelines.
okay, that's fine.
David?
The new one.
Okay. And, okay, so can we vote on this?
So,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, just to clarify the motion
You
for,
wanna clarify?
okay, so that the roofing material be done in corrugated, built up, or another material that's specifically appropriate to the Fort Lowell Historic Preservation Zone for our guidelines. And that design details that have not been fully articulated yet, such as the front doors reconfiguration, or picking up the flooring, those types of details should be coming back to the board for review.
Okay. We can vote on this now. Is there a motion to approve this?
I put forth a motion to approve. I approve.
Okay, and is there a second?
Mary made the motion and Marco seconded.
We're seconded? Okay, so we're just voting yay or nay. Cool. Go Margo, yay or nay?
Yay.
David?
Yay.
Briggs?
Yay.
Yay. From me as well.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you for all of your hard work in developing this neighborhood. Shall I?
Can you reach it? No. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple other orders of business. The design guidelines, and I don't know that we have the stamina for that tonight, but I do have a question, a processing question, and maybe you can help me with the process. Do we go into like executive session to discuss the design guidelines as a group, or do we always have to have it as an open meeting? And like, just like this is the mayor and council, they go into,
Yeah.
to come up with discussion, and we would really like to be able to do some of that.
Right, yeah, I think we discussed this previously, which is that executive session is really only like legal and financial matters that are very limited, what mayor and council is even allowed to do in executive session. So yeah, advisory boards, for open meeting law, I mean, I don't know what sort of items that would be that would warrant. Study sessions open to the public, yeah, so a lot of the items you guys have are similar to study session items where they're informational, there's not an action item. And check with the attorneys, but I'm not aware of other boards in the city other than mayor and council that have executive session.
FEMA Council certainly did. FEMA Community College had executive session.
Yes,
So
probably for financial, legal matters. As the
Can we-
board of the board of.
the board of the college, yeah, but there's more examples. Can we double check that there's any mechanism for us to have this?
What is the, so I guess we need to understand what is the public interest being served by being an executive session rather than an open public forum?
Well, I think that we would like to be able to meet on the fly. You know, it's,
Okay.
for me, a lot of it is the
Well, executive session
planning.
still needs to be noticed. any sort of executive session.
What does that mean?
It's noticed in an agenda ahead of time. Yeah, it doesn't mean there's no notice. It means that it's, you know, not open to the public, basically. So that would be the question, like, what is the reason for wanting executive session and not wanting other neighbors, members of the public, people like that to be part of the discussion?
Well, because we're trying to create a functional proposal and like having an open conversation versus a contained conversation can make that more possible. And then bring forth a fully developed proposal. For instance, of working on the guidelines or something, like I'm collaborating on the guidelines and I'm not able to, you know, have a phone call with people who are trying to share this work.
But they're not even sharing it. You can't even share, right? And in a Google Docs, you couldn't have the whole board working on Google Docs.
That's a good question. We can check on that. Like, what other tools are an option for collaboration?
Because then you get comments.
Right, because I think what we've discussed is that as long as it's not a forum, you can have like a small ad hoc working group. Work on
We're a
this, but-
small group.
I
so
know,
that's so
it's
talk
limiting,
about it.
it's limiting. We can check on what other tools there are, but I think executive session would be the part.
Okay, but
Yeah.
so the other tools so that more of us could work
Think
together.
about that and consult with the attorney's office on. how you can
Great.
Collaborate more on that.
Very good.
The open meeting law, what I understand is you can't even like daisy chain.
Exactly, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we table the big review of the technical guideline update to the next meeting or the next one, especially hopefully that there's no review. So we can be fresh and bushy-eyed for it.
Wyatt, do you anticipate any agenda items next month? Reviews?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay, so unless something
But
comes,
besides, I mean, I know Mary Lou also talked about doing a courtesy review for a project.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where
that'll be right.
if that'll be ready
Okay.
or not, so that we're still on hold about that.
Okay.
So the next month would be a good
The
time
next
to
month.
dedicate to.
Yeah. Yeah,
Motion to move the conversation to next month. Hopefully, we'll still have plenty of time to do it next month.
yeah, and I don't think we need to vote on that. We agree. We could call a special meeting, but
Can we vote on getting Dan on board?
yes. Let's do it.
How lucky for you.
Yeah. And so where is Dan on there? There he is. The board has nominated Dan Hill for the board membership. Is there, first of all, is there any discussion?
Welcome.
Yeah, okay, so let's go around. Briggs,
Yay.
okay, David.
Aye.
Okay,
Sorry.
Margaret,
Yay.
yay. I'm a yay as well. Welcome, Dan. Now you need to formally
Do the official stuff.
do the official
Yeah.
stuff so that we can get you through boards and commission.
That's clear.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
Tom, you ready? To be
No, I'm
nominated?
not. No, I'm not.
To be nominated next time?
We'll just see. Let me get a better feel for what you guys do.
Well, this is kind of a
This is-
painful example.
This was
It was okay.
This was as painful, I think.
I
as
think
it
we're
gets.
getting better as our yeah, come on, we have a huge turnover at this board, so.
Great. Anything else anybody has? Do you have something in particular you'd like to bring up? Call to the audience, Dan, anything? There is a minor review, and, oh, I have a question. I heard somewhere there's gonna be a minor review of the Atkins, and Atkins house, and I haven't heard anything about that.
Wyatt, do you know anything about that?
I have not heard of that.
Not heard that.
And Michael mentioned it.
You did? Okay, we'll check with Michael.
Okay, because the more notice we get, the better we are in attending those things.
Well, there has to be no process for-
Yeah.
Right, depending what the scope is, I'm not sure what the. is.
I think we can adjourn unless, you could make that motion, I think.
No, it's your turn.
I can't.
Have to make a motion.
Let's adjourn. I
Because-
move to-
Hey, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.